You know, you just have to have your priorities set. Like spending money on another piece of junk. Yep, I did it again, bought another old truck. Let's see if this 1952 Dodge M37 will fire up for the first time in over 10 years. Okay, so got this 1952 Dodge Korean War era M37 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive truck. Like any old military rig up here, it's been worked hard and modified some. Back in the 1980s, someone took railroad iron and whatever scrap they had laying around and built a framework to run the winch up over the cab. And they used it to skid logs on their property or whatever they were doing. Let's see if this thing will fire up after, he said it's been sitting for like 8 to 10 years, maybe more than that. Going from the plates, it's last been on the road in 88. So yeah, let's see what'll happen. Overall, the truck's in really good shape. I kind of like the homemade stuff on these type of rigs. It shows the Alaska creativity. Pretty well complete. I looked it over the evening I got it, and yeah. Going off the data plates, I found out the year and whatever else. Pretty handy that way. Good. Got the floor pan for it. Good seat. Came with a spare tire and full set of tire chains, so that's just perfect right there. Bonus. There's no weight to worry about on your front suspension there. It's fine. Nice original winch is still there. It's not cut off or had another type of winch cobbled onto the front like most of these trucks up here have. You usually don't see an M37 with the winch. It's normally the regular without a winch model. So this is pretty cool. Alright, so what we got here is either a Chrysler 230 or it's the military 245. And what I'm uncertain about is the military motors had the lift hook on the head, which this one has, but an M37 like this, they were all 24 volt systems, and I studied this one over and it's all 6 volts. Got a 6 volt generator, regulator, and whatever else. Probably a coil and everything, obviously. So I'm not sure if this is the 245 original motor or it's a 230 out of a civilian vehicle. You know, the original probably could have worn out and they swapped in another one, so I'm not sure. It's kind of weird with the electrical system conversion. And I know on the 245 military motors, they had a different oil dipstick setup than this. It was like a big tube like this filler, and it had a really heavy duty oil dipstick, and it was in a much easier to get to place than right down here. You can barely see it sometimes, but yeah, I'm not sure about this one. I'll have to run the numbers on it. Anyways, no concern there. I can deal with this. I don't mind the 6 volt system. Looks like the original military carburetor with the bolt-on breather and whatnot. You can bolt a snorkel onto those. Some models had that. What I discovered, the motor is free. I don't know if you can see it, the crank turning down there. The motor is not stuck. So far, I think it's free. The only problem I've found is it's stuck in gear. Second gear, actually. It's stuck in gear really bad. I mean, you can't even get it out or move the stick at all. It's like stuck. Somebody took the front drive shaft and rear drive shaft off and tied them up so the thing can roll around and be moved. Might be something with the shift fork or whatever in there, I'm not sure yet. Gotta take that off and get into it. Other than that, it has the old defroster setup. I think they were, I'm not quite sure how they work. Some some old rigs by the military, they had heaters for the inside that ran off of gasoline. What could go wrong there? So I'm not really sure how this one works, but anyways, everything else in here is in good shape. Floor pan, you can't find those anywhere, so luckily I got it with it. And yeah, everything's complete. The clutch works fine. The brake pedal even has pressure, so the brakes might work. The master cylinder is right there. And yeah, everything's pretty intact, other than the glass, but these cabs kind of shed the water pretty well, so I don't think much rain gets in, because it's nice and solid. Really good shape. I mean, you got a little bit, but that's nothing to sneeze at. I like the little homemade flatbed thing back here. Still has a pintle hitch, military pintle hitch on it. Another original plate. And yeah, they were winching logs and whatnot back here. Everything, all the PTO stuff, the lever and unit down there on the side of the transmission, and shaft for the PTO driven winch, that's all there, so that's good too. That thing will probably still work. Used to have the exhaust running out the side, but that's kind of no more now, rusted off. So now it's just open header down there. Probably sound pretty cool when it fires up. Let's take a look. Man, that's full. That's good. All right, let's see what's going on with the oil. Well, it's pretty close to full. I don't think there's any water in it. I don't know. Looks pretty good. Could use a change, but you know, that's a lot better than some that I've seen. Okay, first order of business on this. Let's pop that transmission top off and see what's going on in there. I'd like to get this out of gear before I go any further, like trying to get the motor to run. So let's dive into that. Got a nice little workbench on the back of this rig. Just love the simplicity of old stuff. It's nice. There's one. Oh yeah, I can smell the ancient gear oil already. That's the good stuff. I need a hammer. Is this a hammer? I don't know, it looks like it to me. And a pry bar. Uh-oh, we got some problems. That's a little rusty. Had a little bit too much water in there. Same with that. Hopefully I can fix this. That does not look good. I'm just gonna go ahead and do a lot of this. All right, so as you can see, I got it in the shop. I started to pull the transmission, and once again, another struggle. I got the PTO lever off and the other levers on the other side off. That went really easy. But let me crawl under here. I need a new creeper instead of this pad, but it still works good out in the gravel. Got, like I said, the lever off. But for the past 3 hours, and as you can see all this effort here, I've been fighting this PTO shaft that goes up to the winch. Somebody put a piece of pipe on it where it runs through the frame up there so it doesn't rub. It has no carrier bearing like some of them have. And this end had a set bolt in it. And this end would have had one, but somebody spot welded that on to the shaft of this. And I just drilled that out. I've heated it up a couple times red hot all the way around with a torch, and still can't get it to budge. So I'm not sure what it's gonna take to get this off. But anyways, that's kind of the only thing holding me up here, because I can't lower this transmission because it's right above the axle and goes through the frame up there. That shaft does. But yeah, as soon as I get that off, I'd get this drive shaft off that goes to the transfer case, and then the bolts that hold the transmission on, and then lower it down. There comes a time when you got to show these things who's boss. You see that? All the way under there. Ran a cable through that yoke. It's a cable with a hose around it. I don't know what it's from, but it's got 2 eyelets on each end. Hooked it to the come along there. Got that as tight as I could possibly get it. And just wailed on this thing with this. And it came right off. Perfect. Had that PTO shaft red hot twice with a torch, and it couldn't budge it. Using a big huge punch and a hammer. But that come along trick sure worked good. Now, 4 hours later, messing with that BS, let's get this thing out. And there you have it. Got it out. The drive shaft took a while. The bolts were fine threaded and rusty and kind of stubborn, but yeah, got it down, no problem. Now I can not worry about a locked up transmission and whatnot when I go to start the motor. Probably gonna do that tomorrow. See if it runs. And then if it does, either go through this thing and see if there's any hope at all at making it work. The PTO unit is still good, obviously, but if it's not any good, hopefully I can find another transmission. There's a few places around here that I can look, but yeah. Gonna push this outside so I can get it running tomorrow. And it's not in here, and I gotta close these doors, but yeah, so that took forever and a lot of effort, but got it done. Now I can keep going. All right, it's the next day. Let's get this old motor to run. On the original setups on these, they had the 24 volt, like I said, and the battery box was under the passenger seat originally, and somebody has cobbled one in right here next to the carburetor. So that's a good mixture right there. What could go wrong? I think the first thing I'm going to do is spray all these with WD-40 and let that sit down in those domes of the head right there where the spark plugs go in. And that'll free up that little bit of rust. There, water and moisture likes to sit in there, but luckily it didn't get down through because this motor's free. But it's still good to lube all those up so you don't have any issues. All the wiring a little bit better and make sure there's no hazards before I hook power up. Clean these battery terminal cables up and set the 6-volt battery in here and see what I got for power. See if the button inside works to turn it over. Probably try and run it before I change the oil. I got brand new oil for it, but make sure it runs good, no issues, and then I'll put new oil in it. And after I WD-40 all the spark plugs, I'm going to take them all out and squirt some ATF down in each cylinder. Just kind of help the cylinders get lubed up since it's being turned over for the first time in a long time, so that always helps. Turning it over with the fan right there, it feels like it has good compression, so hopefully we don't have any stuck valves or anything like that. That's kind of famous on a flathead motor of any type or brand. Well, I didn't know this would be like baseball. This thing's just been throwing curveballs one after another. I took all the plugs out, squirted ATF in, cleaned the plugs all up, put them back in. Then I put the battery in, checked for power everywhere, got power from the switch inside. Solenoid wasn't working. So I hooked up jumper cables to the battery and ran them across over here and went to jump the solenoid right there on the starter cable. I did that. The starter made a little bit of noise, but it didn't do a thing at all. So I'm like, well, I got to take the starter off now. So I took it off and I pull it out. And the first thing I see is things that just don't look right. You know, like this, you don't need that at all. It just, that's just for show. That goes in there and that's a, I don't know what. But yeah, somebody evidently didn't know it was locked up in gear. And they tried to start it. And they grenaded the starter. I took the dust cover off underneath and found all the teeth from the starter laying in it. And of course it's broken. So I'm gonna have to go to the junkyard, which I can't today, it's Sunday. Gonna have to go to the junkyard, find another starter, and while I'm there, hopefully find another transmission. And if I can't find another transmission, I'll just have to go through the one that I pulled out of this and see if I can free it up and make everything work. So yeah, I'm at a standstill. I was hoping to get this thing running today, but not gonna happen quite yet. I did take all the plugs out, squirt ATF in each cylinder, and clean all the plugs up and put them back in to keep any debris from going down into the motor. And I rolled it over by hand with the ATF in there to get things kind of circulated good and lube up the cylinders. So that should be good. That whole ordeal with the starter, I cleaned all the garbage out of this thing. It was absolutely packed full and all kinds of dirt and other junk in there. Cleaned it all out. Found some goodies down in the bottom. There's a spare fan belt and the hand crank for the motor, even though you can't use it with the winch. And yeah, just kind of vacuumed everything out. Looks a lot better. Found another piece to the floor pan where the levers go. So yeah, was a little bit productive, but now I'm kind of stuck again, unfortunately. All right, so it's the next day. It's been raining most of the day, but just got back from the junkyard and bingo, got a starter. And it was in a shed marked 51 Plymouth, so that's mint right there. Big thank you to good friends who have a junkyard close to me and help me out with all this stuff all the time. So let's pop this cover off, and I have some electrical cleaner, spray that in there, and then hook up power to this terminal off the battery and see if she works. And I got my old one in case I have to make 1 out of 2, so that should work. The teeth are a little chewed up from use, but they'll be just fine. Here we go. Well, isn't that just my luck? I would say she's been outside at some point too. Hopefully this cleans up. There, that looks a little better. Let's see if it works. Negative, it does not work. Let's put it inside on the bench and tear it down, see what it looks like. At least I got the other one to make it work. Needs some cleaning. Pretty bad. I know the other one at least made noise with power put to it, so let me tear into that one and see what the inside of that one looks like. And I might just put this end on it. Not sure yet. Okay, so these two are from the junkyard starter. Clean this one all up on the wire wheel good, lube that up with WD-40, and it works good. That turned out really well. Here's the cone, and then this is from the original. It's a lot cleaner in there by the brushes and everything. This red coating, I'm not sure what it is. It might be some kind of waterproofing, I don't know what, but I'm just gonna leave it and put this group together, because here's a junkyard one, and the lighting's bad in here, but it's not too good. And then here's the broken cone from the original. And then of course, this is all broke off and has seen a beating on the old one where they wrecked it. So all that's good on the junkyard one. Got it all together. Let's go hook it up to some power and see what happens. It looks good, but hope it works good too. Well, hey, I did something right so far. She works, so let's put it back in. Right after I clean up this dust cover and put it on. Took the cap off. Surprisingly, everything looks really good in there. Cap even looks new. I put a piece of emery cloth in between the points, clean those up good. And yeah, let's put the rotor back on and see if this thing has spark. Okay, so I set up a brand new spark plug on the head there. Just rolled it over with the 6-volt hooked up and the switch on inside, and nothing. So let me make sure I'm getting power to my coil here. Yeah, I'm stupid. I unplugged this, which goes up here to that, if you can see it. I undid it to take the starter in and out. There, that's back hooked up. Maybe it'll have something now. Nope, that didn't make a difference. So I checked the coil and no power to it. I tried the switch inside also. I get power out here at the solenoid, which would kick on the starter, but no power to the coil. So I'll run a wire from the battery to the coil and see if that works. All right, so it's the next day. I messed with this for a few more hours trying to get spark when I last recorded, and couldn't get anywhere, and did some research and found out all the old Mopar systems that were 6-volt were positive ground, and somebody's messed with this and turned it into negative ground. So I had to follow some wiring, and long story short, I got a brand new coil and brand new condenser. And I took the points that were in it out because I couldn't get any. They were back ordered. Took those out. They look pretty new. Cleaned them up very good. And cleaned up inside the distributor there. Put everything back together. And I just rolled it over with the 12-volt battery to the starter. And she's got spark at the plug, so. Okay, well, I ended up taking the starter off and taking it back apart and messing with that some more, and got it working a little bit better. It's not quite cranking fast enough still, but it's better. So I've been cranking it over a little bit, and I took this little breather pipe thing off here so I can spray easier in there with the starting fluid. So let's see what happens. Okay, it's a couple days later again. I had it fire off when I last recorded, and of course I didn't have the camera on, and of course I couldn't get it to do it again. The problem is it's cranking way too slow to fire up. So yesterday I went to a buddy's and had him make up some heavy-duty battery cables for me, and I just put those on. They're not correct yet because I'm still waiting on a solenoid, so I just touched the end of that to the starter, and she really turns over good on 6 volts now, so it's gonna work. 6-volt systems, they really like good grounds and big heavy-duty cables to move more amperage through, so that definitely helped. They had the ground to the exhaust manifold bolt here, so instead of that I put the ground right on the starter bolt, and that makes a huge difference too, right down there. So yeah, she really turns over good now. Let's get some fuel to it and see if it fires up. look at that. She's just cherry. Gonna go all out on this thing. Got some fancy oil and got this stuff. It adds all that to your oil, which they took out of your oil because it plugs up catalytic converters and all that other junk that normally you'd cut off and throw into a pond up here. But anyways, the old motors had old school oil back in the day, and they had a lot of zinc in them, and they don't have that anymore. So I'm just gonna put the additive in it and treat this thing good. Just laying under here watching the dinosaur bones drain out. I would have to say that oil is 30 years old or more. Pretty black, and just from the smell of it. So yeah, I took the filter canister top off and pulled the filter out, and kind of made a big mess everywhere and went all over the starter, so I had to spray that out. But that's clean now. I'm not going to put a new filter in there because I don't have one, and nowhere in town would have one. That's way too old. I've even been putting this stuff in the gas, so this thing's getting the best treatment so far. And yeah, hopefully that's drained out down there now. Get all the 30-year-old dinosaur oil out of it. And then fill it back up with that new Napa stuff. Put the additive in it. Run it some more. And hopefully that smoke clears out. Pretty sure they had it way too overfilled. So yeah, let's see what happens. I've never used this stuff before, but I always hear good stuff about it. I got 1 quart of regular oil in, so let's dump this on top and then put all the other oils on top. Man, that's some goopy stuff. All right, she's full on oil. Let's put this cap back on. Let's fire it up and see if the smoke is gone. Been running it for a bit and hasn't cleared out so far. Hopefully it will. Just got to run it more and more over time. I've seen them do that, so yeah, hopefully it does. It's got a bit of a mist to it, so probably got to go through the carburetor. Who knows if all the valves are completely freed up yet, or if any of those plug wires are still any good. They're pretty old. So anyways, it's building good oil pressure. It's been climbing higher and higher as it sits here running. And that gauge is broken out, but it still works. So yeah, she's a runner. Smoky, but I'm not complaining. It sounds good. So relieved that it doesn't have a knock or anything in it. So now just gotta go through the transmission, rebuild that. I think it's gonna be doable. I found some kits online for it. And then get that thing back in here and then drive her around and keep going through it and see what else is wrong. So yeah, till the next video, I guess thanks for watching, and comment below what you want to see and what you thought about all this.